Welcome to the Dumb Idea Podcast Show with Mike and Alex. We thank you for joining us as we have a couple of beers and a cigar and talk about what's going on in our lives. Grab an adult beverage and a smoke and settle in with us. Please like, subscribe, and comment on each show so we can hear whether you agree or disagree with our take on things. Listen wherever your favorite podcasts are and at www.dumbideapodcast.com.
Yeah, so I'm outside, hanging out, and late at night, not too late, but I hear the obnoxious report of a tuner car, like probably a Honda, I'd like to say. You hear the buzzy, loud, four-banger exhaust.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing behind it, just obnoxious noise. And it got me thinking about when I was younger and into cars. Now, I was a Chevy guy. I had a Camaro. I had a couple of them. I loved it. I don't know why. It's just the type of car I could afford and thought it was cool, so I bought it. And then all of a sudden, I was a Chevy guy. And these kids drive around in their Hondas. They're Honda guys, and God forbid they'd buy a Toyota. And they become these cult fans of these vehicles or whatever it is, because it extends into a whole bunch of different things, whether it's electronics, cars, whatever you're into. Someone will be super into one particular brand of it, and a lot of it really probably isn't based upon anything. So in my driveway currently, there's a Toyota and there's a Ford. There are no Chevys. Not that I would never buy one, I just don't have one. So, but the me of 20 years ago would see that Ford sitting in the driveway and think that I was the worst person ever, because only idiots drove Fords. So, you know, and the difference, of course, at the time, the Camaro, the competitor, was the Mustang. And when you break it down, they're both V8 rear-wheel drive coupes. There's not a whole, there really isn't that much difference. Now, the Ford people are going to crucify, and the Chevy people will do the same.
Right.
But they're pretty much the same thing.
Pitchforks on your front door, by the way. It's coming at you. Yeah. It comes to, and we kind of talked about this before. Everybody, at some point, seems to want to belong to their cult of some sort. It's almost like the cult or the fanboys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. You got your Ford fanboys. Now, generally with Ford and Chevy, it's the trucks. It's not so much the cars. I don't think Ford and Chevy people don't care about their cars.
Yeah.
But your Ford F-150 fans versus your Chevy Silverado fans. Yep. Those are the fan clubs. If you want to join a cult, you go online. Yeah. They're there.
Mm-hmm.
I must be the pariah of both worlds because I have a Chevy and a Ford SUV in my driveway.
Right. They're both.
They're probably pissing on each other out in the driveway, and I don't even know it. Like, they're fighting each other.
Right. There's the Calvin sticker pissing over on the other one, and direct, not just the vehicle itself. And the trucks, of course, get into, now you've got Toyota, Dodge, Nissan. People are going back and forth.
Well, the funny part with that, I think the Ford guys and the Chevy guys, they probably laugh at the Toyota guys. But the Toyota guy's like, yeah, my shit starts.
Yeah, right. Mine runs every time I get in it.
Right.
Mine at, with 200,000 miles on it, should be worth twice what yours is.
And they're all laughing at the Dodge guys because their stuff never starts. Yeah, it's like Dodge trucks used to be really, really good, but they haven't been good in like 15 years because the electrical wiring and the electrical components weren't beefy enough to handle the V8 engines they were throwing in it. Because Dodge went for the gusto, and they said, look, we're going to put this Hemi in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a powerful engine, and the engine itself is fine. But when you put an underpowered alternator in with weak belts, weak wiring, everything, it's just going to wear it down. But that's beside the point. But the Dodge people love their Dodges. Ford loves their Ford. Chevy loves their Chevys, and it doesn't just apply to them.
No, it goes into all kinds of. I mean, it goes so far as. So I'm really big into aviation. That was one of the things I wanted to do, and there are fanboys of different manufacturers of airliners. So you have your Boeing fanboys, and you have your Airbus fanboys. neither of which have actually flown either one of these aircraft. They're passengers.
Right.
Oh, if it's not a Boeing, I'm not going.
Meanwhile, if they're inside, they couldn't tell you the difference between the two.
Right. Yeah. Now I could by looking at it because I'm a nerd, and some of these guys probably could too. But in actuality, like these machines are made to such a everything's so the regulations that they have to meet. Like there's these aircraft are not, you don't stand a better chance of dying if you're on a Boeing or versus an Airbus. They're going to get you there reliably and safely, regardless of which one it is. But there are people that are very, very brand loyal to stuff that really that has no sort of impact on their lives.
They should have no loyalty to the brand at all.
Right.
Because the brand themselves, they don't care about you at all.
No.
You're a number, and if you drop out and don't buy theirs, they got another one that'll buy theirs.
Yeah.
And probably coming from a different brand that screwed them over. Like, well, let me try this one.
Yep.
But like you could say that about, if we're back on cars, you're talking about BMW, Mercedes, Audi.
Mm-hmm.
You got Fanboys for each, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Audi probably gets a little bit more because of VW.
Right.
And whereas Mercedes and BMW don't have the entry brand.
Correct. Yep.
But I also remember like VW was trying to market themselves as like a mid-upscale brand, and everyone in the States was like, "Get out of here with that."
That's
stuff.
why
should be your Jetta should be priced at the Focus level, and you're trying to price it something like 10 grand higher.
Right. Like
you're crazy.
Yeah. Like the Phaeton.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome car. But it didn't do well. Another one was the Touareg or Touareg or however you pronounce that.
Yep.
Especially with the diesel, was a beast. But again, the consumer would look at it and say, "That's a Volkswagen." And when you're talking about people like our parents' age, who a Volkswagen Bug, like that was the cheap car that you could get, and you bought it because it was inexpensive. It was the air-cooled engine was super reliable. It was easier to replace the entire engine than it was to work on the engine. And people would drive it. And okay, that's the cheap car. Well, now you want to sell me an $80,000 Volkswagen? Are you kidding me?
Right. And it probably cannibalized some sales from Audi at that point, which is probably why they stopped making it.
Yeah.
Well, that and nobody bought it because anyone who was going to buy that went to the Audi dealership instead.
Right, they're already in that territory, so no one was going up, and it kind of goes in the same. The Japanese manufacturers came up with, Acura, Lexus, Infiniti, because who's going to spend that kind of money on a Honda when you're thinking Honda Civic? When they came here was, that was competing with the Volkswagen Bug. Yeah, and now you're going to sell me a luxury version of that.
Well, I think with the Asian imports, I think what they were doing was, they had their first phase was we need young people who aren't stuck in their ways to buy these cars. So they bought the Toyotas, the Hondas, and Nissans,
mm-hmm.
right? And as the years went on, like 10 years, 11, 15 years later, well, the people that were buying these were growing up. Better jobs, better paying jobs. They wanted the luxury brand, but they didn't want to go to Oldsmobile. And this was back then. They didn't want to go to Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
They didn't want to go to Cadillac. They didn't want to go from this super reliable Toyota Camry or Honda Accord and then go into an Oldsmobile or a Cadillac, where at the time weren't known for the great reliability.
Oh no, they were building junk at the time, right. And it was badge engineering is all it was.
And it was bad. It was like engine failure bad. Yeah. Like this wasn't like a little thing. This thing might last me 4 years if I'm lucky, and then the heads are gonna blow. Whereas I had this Toyota Camry for 10 years and I didn't have a problem with it.
The engine ran fine, the body rusted off of it.
Right. So I think what they ended up doing was they said, okay, we need a brand, a luxury brand that we can now basically graduate our original buyers into. Mm-hmm. And it worked like a charm.
Yeah. And you can see Hyundai is doing it now with the Genesis is now its own brand.
Kia's trying to do it with one brand. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work, because even like the Kia Telluride, It's a huge SUV. Well, it's a big SUV.
Yeah.
But it's on par with like a Chevy Traverse, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very nice. I mean, as a person who owns a Chevy, if you compared a Kia Telluride to a Chevy Traverse right now, the Telluride wins hands down.
Yeah.
And the price is equal. Mm-hmm. Now, are you going to buy a Kia branded luxury car for more than the Telluride? I mean, the Telluride's a head and shoulders above the Traverse, but their price is the same because no one's going to pay an extra 15 to 20 grand for a Kia versus a Chevy.
Right.
And so that's where Kia's kind of stuck, where Hyundai, like you said, they brought Genesis along as a brand, and now they're going to be able to charge that much with their SUVs and their cars, whereas before they tried to do it with the Equus and the Genesis, the Hyundai Genesis.
Yeah,
people bought them,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, but they weren't commanding luxury brand markup.
No.
I mean, the Equus, I think, was like an S-Class fighter, but they were charging 65 grand for it versus the S-Class, which was, I mean, the base one, I think, was 80.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a 30 grand discount.
And that Equus, I mean, they were loaded. The owner's manual was an iPad, with the manual loaded onto it. So they were already discounting it. But then it leads you back into the fanboys, the Cadillac fanboy.
Yeah.
Well, that Acura is a much more reliable vehicle. But nope, you're a Cadillac guy, so you're going to buy that Cadillac regardless. You get into it with, the Ford guy might buy the Lincoln over the...
Right. They want to stick with the family.
Yeah. Now, some people, like my father always bought American cars. He would not buy a foreign car at all. My mother was the same way. I think it had to do with the fact that my father grew up in Pittsburgh and the steel industry and the unions, and they were loyal to that sort of thing. And then, of course, I think there's a little bit, from my grandparents both fighting in World War II. They were never going to buy a Japanese or German car.
We had talked about it when I went through my Nissan history from the time I was 21. And, I think I had 5 or 6 straight Nissans.
Mm-hmm.
Every 3 years, leasing them out, until finally I had just had enough with the quality of them, where I was like, I can't buy another one.
Yeah.
But I was a fanboy,
mm-hmm.
because I didn't even shop another brand.
Yeah. I
would take it in, say, look, get me out 3 months early for my lease, I'll get another one. If I didn't even go test drive anything else.
Right.
So technically, I was a fan. I wasn't like, I'm not on a message board saying how great they are, or I'm not like saying, hey, you got to go get one. It's the only thing you should look for. I wasn't like that. But there were people back then, Nissan, Honda, Toyota, but they all do it. But it doesn't just apply to cars. Like you said, you were talking about airplanes, but let's even talk about something more basic that everyone can relate to with their phones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Android or iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Or iPad or Android tablet.
Yep. And on this table right now, you have an Android and I have an iPhone.
Right.
And I always get iPhones because that's what I've always gotten. Well, my first smartphone was a BlackBerry Storm, and I'm only going to use the smartphone in the most academic sense of the term. There's nothing smart about that pile of garbage. And there are no BlackBerry fanboys.
Oh, I don't know about that. No, I won't go that far.
I'm sure there's a fanboy for everything.
Listen, they're fanboys for that QWERTY keyboard. With that raised keyboard, there are still people that are diehard for those.
And wasn't the government still using those for a long time?
Yeah, they were. They were. I would say about 6 to 7 years ago is when they finally dropped it for iPhones. But BlackBerries, I mean, the click wheel,
mm-hmm.
and then even over to like the semi-smartphone, but it had the QWERTY keyboard.
Yep.
And then finally they just ditched them because BlackBerry was kind of going downhill.
Right.
And I don't think they could. They were always good for security, but they weren't great for functionality.
Right.
Because no one was building apps for BlackBerry anymore. Where I think even like the newest BlackBerries, they have the QWERTY keyboard, but it runs like a version of Android.
Mm-hmm. Or
I think they call it QNX. It's like their own disguised version of Android. But yeah, so BlackBerry's got its huge fanboys, but iOS, there are companies that would love to figure out how Apple gets people to line up for 2 days before an iPhone drops to buy a new one.
And as an iPhone user, I don't get it. And the reason I have an iPhone is because that's the first smartphone I had, and I just kind of stuck with it. I've had Android phones, like work phones have been Android, and it didn't work the same. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not what I was used to, because I was used to iPhones all the time.
Right.
But I know there are people out there who are Samsung Galaxy fans, and that's all they will buy. And when the new Samsung comes out, they line up to get it, just like when the new iPhone drops. And I have a buddy that he goes out, and as soon as he could have just gotten the latest iPhone, and the new one comes out, and he goes out and buys the latest one because he has to have the newest iPhone. It's almost like a status thing.
Yeah.
But the Apple branding, I think, has something to do with it too, because people want to be associated with that brand, with whatever that brand represents, and they want to be like, they kind of look at it as that's their,
that's their Lexus.
Yeah, their identity is tied into that phone and that brand and that which Apple represents, and it's not with Samsung.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, right. But you're right though. No, it doesn't matter which Samsung phone you have. It is not the status symbol that an iPhone is.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Right.
If you have the newest iPhone, for whatever reason, in those groups, it's like, you're right. It's like having the Lexus LS versus the Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
Now, like my wife, she's got an iPhone. I've got an Android. For us, it's functional, right? So for my wife, she knows how to use iOS. She's used it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Her first iPhone was an iPhone 6. We didn't upgrade her until the iPhone X. Well, XS, or I guess 10S, whatever that is. So we went 4.5 or more model years before we upgraded her.
Yeah.
The only reason why we upgraded her, because she had like a little crack in the screen. Something we probably could easily fix, but we were like, look, this phone's like 4 or 5 years old. We'll get you another one.
Yeah.
But we didn't even look at Android for her because she knew how to use iOS, and we knew that phone was gonna last 5 more years.
Right.
So I didn't mind. Like, we got it on a nice deal from the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the one model behind. I think the 11 had just come out.
That's how I usually get mine.
Yeah, and this XS was a great phone for her.
Yeah,
because she's not a power user.
Mm-hmm.
But that XS, it'll last her another 5 years, and you get it for under $700. And you're like, okay, it's not $1,100 like the brand Nubian.
Right.
We can plunk this down. We'll be all right. We'll pay the $25, or I think it was like $20 a month or something like that.
Right.
Or they were giving credit, so now it's down to like $15, whatever. It was some ridiculously cheap price for an iPhone, and we just snapped it up. But for her, it's just gonna work. Like, I don't have to worry about, like, with my phone, it's an Android phone. In order for me to get it the way I like it, I modify it.
Right.
And that's the appeal to Android. People like to modify their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not stuck to the Android store.
Yeah.
I can get apps from wherever. I mean, I could possibly get a virus from it, but if it's something I know and I know who the developer is, I can go get it and I can put it on my phone, and I don't have to worry about Google. Now, Google knows I got it because they're snooping on everything.
Right.
But again, but there are some people that live and die by Android because they can do those things to their phone, and there are people that live and die by Apple because it just works.
Yeah.
It's like, Apple's the Lexus, where the Android phone, whether it's a Pixel or a Samsung, that's like your Audi or your BMW.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a speed racer, but it's probably gonna break, and it's gonna cost you some money to fix it.
and there are people that fall into that sort of mindset where, hey, I just want something that's going to work. It's simple. But there's the guys and girls who are just, nope, they are associated with that brand. Yeah. And you run into it with anything that has branding and competitors. You've got the people that are super into whether it's shoes. They only wear Nikes or only wear Reebok, and really most of those people probably couldn't tell the difference if you put them on their feet. Couldn't tell you, as long as the sizes were the same. The Reebok shoe is not making them run any slower than the Nike was. They're just slow to begin with.
Listen, not according to Spike Lee. Do you remember that commercial with the Jordans? It's got to be the shoes. It was when the Jordans first came out.
Yeah.
You jump higher, you dunk the ball. It's got to be the shoes.
Right.
And it was Mars. It was Mars Blackman and Jordan were in the commercial. Like, and that was Spike Lee's character. It was Mars Blackman. But so that maybe they do make you jump higher.
Yeah, but they think that that those shoes are going to make them better, or again, associating with the brand. People would, if you look at there's probably Bentley and Rolls Royce. So you see a lot more Bentleys on the road than you do Rolls. A lot of them are pretty similar. Yeah. But they're, the Bentley brand has been, a lot of rap videos have Bentleys, but not Rolls Royce.
Right.
So, maybe it's the association with, to Bentley with rap music that turns people off drives the value to, who knows what it is, but
the Rolls was always known as the fuddy-duddy old English brand.
Yep.
And the Bentley was the new hotness.
Yeah.
So,
and they're really probably going to leave, both of them will probably leave you on the side of the road. But
Definitely. A Bentley will leave you on the side of the road.
The British build beautiful things.
Yep.
They don't run very well for very long. Mm-hmm. But, people associate certain things with those brands than with other things, and really they're identical.
But so I guess the question is, why are people so loyal is one part of it, but vocally, why are they so vocal proponent of something? Like if a Chevy guy sees a Ford guy, it's almost like he's got to confront him to tell him his car's crap.
Right.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? What got implanted in your brain that your car or your phone or your shoe brand is just so superior that you feel you need to just chide someone for their choice of something else?
It's almost like a missionary type thing. Yeah. Like, I have to convert you to iPhone. Really, I don't care what kind of phone you use. I don't care what kind of car you drive. It makes no difference to me. The shoes you're wearing, like, I don't care. You run into it a lot, and if for anyone out there who's a gun person will know exactly what I'm talking about. The fanboys when it comes to firearms is insane. Now, there are better weapons manufacturers and there are poorer ones. But if you're looking at your stuff like Glock, Smith & Wesson, Sig Sauer, they're all, reliable weapons. They're all going to do you just... Police departments carry them, military uses them. They're going to be fine. However, you will find Glock people that are dyed-in-the-wool, die-hard Glock people. And if you go into a store, they will try to convert you to Glocks. Like
join our religion.
Right. Like, I think they're fine guns. They're a little boring. They all look exactly the same.
Right.
You really can't tell them apart. And again, do the aesthetics of a firearm really matter? No. But people think that it does. And then you get into caliber. And people say, oh, well, 9mm crap and 40's the best. And then you have the 45 guys and you have the 350. Really, the one you should buy is the one that you can afford and that you can accurately and safely use. That's the one you want. But you get these guys that are just so hooked in it.
Well, so a good example of that, we were a part of one of these conversations probably about, 9 months ago, 12 months ago, when we were talking with some friends of ours, and I think I'm the lone holdout as far as a handgun goes. Mm-hmm. Like, got my license, but just never went and got the gun. And I'm like, all right, this is the year I'm gonna go get it. I've been wanting one. Finally convinced the wife to allow it in the house and the safe and everything. And then I'm like, I came to you guys and I said, all right, I just want a basic handgun that for home protection and something I can go to the range with. Mm-hmm. I think I got 7 different answers.
Yeah.
And then I think the other criteria I said was, it's got to be inexpensive.
Right.
It's got to be inexpensive. I think maybe I got 2 suggestions that fit that criteria. The rest of it was, no, why are you getting that one? You got to go for this one.
Yeah.
you're 40. I don't need a 40 caliber.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not pulling out the Desert Eagle.
Yeah.
Like in the movie Snatch, where what's his name? Vinny puts the Desert Eagle on the table. Because it was a great scene. The three guys come up, point their guns at Vinny, and he said, "Well, my gun says Desert Eagle 45 on the side, and yours says replica. Therefore, I'm going to finish my pint." So anyway, I guess my point is, I don't want replica, but I also don't need the Desert Eagle.
No, and that's what you get into when you, and a lot of times, like, people just get hooked on this idea of this is better because they heard it from something, or the number's bigger. 45 ACP is bigger than 9mm Luger, and they just get into their head that, or they heard someone say this caliber is crap or that gun is crap. But really, and for what you were talking about, there's nothing wrong if you picked up, a Bursa or a Kel-Tec or something. Like, you're not carrying this for work.
Right.
You're not out. It's something that you want to have in your house, and if cost is a factor, then certainly you're going to look to those brands. And there's nothing wrong with it. But to those who are hooked on whatever, and generally it's because it's what they did, and they need to justify in their heads what they've done. So,
well, I think it was. I went online, and I think I sent you guys like pictures of like a Targus and some no name, like something I had never heard of before. And I think the consensus was, okay, you don't want a 22 because it's not going
to do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
At least get a 9mm.
Yeah.
9mm is still an inexpensive way to get into the game. I was like, okay. And so, but the brands I think that were given to me, a handgun was like $1,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not paying $1,000.
No.
Like, I want to get in at like $400 or $500. Yeah. And as long as it works, I don't care.
Right.
But it was like 2 or 3 of the other guys were like, "Oh no, you shouldn't get that. You got to get." Like, okay, you people, like, you were not understanding the criteria of this exercise.
They're not. But they're not like, listening at all.
They were giving me their favorite brand.
Yeah.
And the favorite brand only.
Right.
And not hearing, "Hey, look, I can't afford your brand."
Right.
Like this, I'm dipping my toe in the water. I'm not swimming yet.
Right. I'm not trying to go all out on this thing. It's almost like if like my lawnmower is, I think it's the Home Depot brand. YTD or Yard Machines, I forget what it's got, a Briggs and Stratton engine on it. I pushed it around. I pay the kid next door to do it now. I haven't started in 2 years. But that's the thing. If I was to go say I bought a riding mower, there'd be a John Deere fan out there. Oh yeah. You got to get a John. Nothing runs like a Deere, dude. I don't need to spend $6,000 on a riding mower.
I had the same issue, and I did some research on it, and I found out that those riding mowers, there's only 3 manufacturers, and they just rebrand them. It's badge engineering. It's like Husqvarna, YTD, I think was Yard Machines, Craftsman, and I think there's like 3 or 4 other brands in there. They're all made. I think was it STD? I think makes most of them, and they just rebrand them.
Yeah,
and you got 2 choices. You got Briggs and Stratton and Kohler engines. Various sizes, but depends on the size of the mower. But that's it.
Right.
The rest of the mechanisms are the same. The decks are the same. The batteries are the same. How it all works together, the same.
It's all the same stuff, and people get so hooked on. But that's the genius in this brand stuff is that some clown is going to go out there and spend that much money for the John Deere lawnmower. Now, if you're a farmer and you have a legit, and your livelihood depends on these machines,
right? Yeah,
okay, go buy the New Holland or the.
But those guys make their own.
Yeah,
that's different. I'm not talking about that. John Deere makes John Deere,
right?
And the other brands make those brands, but those are like enormous tractors.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that, but I'm sure there's fanboys of that too.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Frederick County. Yeah. There are fanboys,
right? But it's like, it's so hard to get the unbiased opinion. Like if you're out there looking for advice on any kind of a purchase, good luck.
Yeah.
Because people are out there shooting their brand at you, and they don't even know why.
No.
Now, again, some of these brands is obvious. Like a Toyota, you buy it because it's always going to start.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is some oil changes. We get that. Hondas, for the most part, are the same way. But no one ever tells you the detractions from those brands.
Right.
For example, Honda, notorious for road noise coming through the car. Now, I'm sure they've probably upped their game a little bit in the previous years, but that was like one of the biggest sins on the CRV and the Accord. Whatever tires they put on it or whatever insulation they were putting in around the cabin, you just heard buzzing road noise all the time. With the Camrys, it was always the lack of innovation or design of the interior. It always, like, I remember like the early 2000s or mid 2000s Avalons. Like the buttons were like see-through and had like that green glow behind them. It looked awful. Like I get it. Like there's always a reason why like not to buy something. Like the interior of the Avalon looked awful. The exterior was humdrum until about 2013.
Yeah.
But then Toyota started doing that middle center console thing, or the dash that would like poke out into the car. Like the Toyota Venza was a great looking car on the exterior, but you sat in and like the dash came out at you like you were driving, like you were gonna helm the Starship Enterprise. Like why is it so far out here?
Yeah.
And the shifters on the up by the radio. It's like, who designed this?
Yeah, that's like the Honda when the Honda Fit had the shifter up there, and apparently that was some.
It came from the CRV though.
Yeah, it was some sort of racing. Go fast. Some of those kids that were into the. That was the thing because it's quicker to shift from to take your hand off the wheel and shift because fractions of a second matter when you're running to Safeway. Except
you're driving a Fit and it goes 0 to 60 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, its speedometer's a calendar.
Right. Yeah.
But that's what it was. Apparently that's, and my wife's minivan has the shifter. It's not the column shifter like every other minivan we ever. It sits on the, and all the minivans are doing it. It sits on the dash. It's weird. In COVID, it's a convenient place to hang your mask.
Right.
But now we don't have to do that anymore.
The one that does it the best, but I'd be afraid to buy, is the Pacifica minivan now, because it's a rotary dial up there, so it's not obtrusive, right? It looks like just a regular dial, but I'm afraid it would just break in 2 weeks.
So they tried that in the 50s with the push button transmissions.
Yeah.
And there were problems with them. And now I think I look at it, I'm like, push button transmission. But the thing is, like the shifter in my Fusion, it could be shaped like anything. It's not mechanically connected to anything. It might as well be it could be a banana. So it could be any shape they wanted it to be. It just looks like a shifter. They do that for that sort of thing. But if you want to get back to the brand, I mean, even back in the day, the minivans, the Chrysler minivans were the king.
Yes, they were.
And now I think there are other vehicles that surpass it.
Toyota surpasses it by far.
Yeah.
Toyota. I mean, the Toyota Sienna and the Honda Odyssey.
Yeah.
Are the minivan kings.
Oh yeah.
They brought back the Pacifica, and I will say this: the Pacifica looks very nice from the exterior, and it looks very nice on the interior. I don't know anything about the longevity of the car because it hasn't been out long enough.
Right.
If that car proves to be a longevity king, I think it's going to give the other two a run for their money. The problem is with Chrysler, everyone's been bitten by a Chrysler or Dodge product.
Oh, yeah.
In the last 15 years because they were bought out 15 times.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have Mercedes, Cerberus, and then Fiat. And Fiat's got one of the worst reputations for
fix it again, Tony.
Right. Right. And so even if that Pacifica is a reliability champ, it's going to be 20 years until people realize it.
Right.
And we'll start buying it in droves again.
Yeah, because if you're out on the road, you still see old Honda Odysseys running around, old Siennas running around.
Yeah.
You do see some old Chrysler vans, but I think it was just sheer numbers of them. Kind of like cicadas. Right. How there are sheer numbers of cicadas. Like they will be around for, there's so many, they're so dumb, and everything eats them, but it doesn't matter because there's just so many of them. Some of them will survive.
Oh yeah, I mean the reason why there aren't that many Dodge Caravans and stuff out there is because Dodge Caravans can't bump uglies and make millions more, and then go and die. Right.
Right. Exactly. And I look at but the fanboy stuff doesn't really fall too hard into them because nobody's into them. And I think to get a fanboy following, you have to have people that are into it. And the Ford Chevy thing, when you had a rivalry like the Camaro Mustang rivalry, that was a big, big deal because those cars were, the cover of every car magazine would be a Ford, Z28 Mustang GT showdown. Up until they stopped making not this version of the Camaro, but the previous version, the last affordable version of it. There was always going to be a contest between them, and for people to get into it, then you're going to develop your fanboys, and it starts, with kids. The first model car of a Camaro they got, and now they're into that. They've never driven one. They are not even allowed to drive. The dude's 9, but he's a Chevy guy, or their parents were Chevy people.
Could it extend beyond products too? Like, what about sports teams?
Oh yeah.
Now, I think there's a difference though. Sports teams, a lot of it's proximity, right? Mm-hmm. Auburn, Alabama. Yeah. Now you got your Auburn fans, your Alabama fans, right. Or even like NFL, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're Ravens fans, we know that. And the poor guy in our friend group that's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan isn't going to get a word in edgewise, no, even if they win Super Bowl.
He's surrounded.
Right.
And he's behind enemy lines.
But so I guess the question is what causes people to be fanboys of products they use or places they live? Like it could even be state to state, right? I mean, you're talking about New York people don't like people from Texas. Texas people don't like people from New York.
Yeah, Maryland, Virginia,
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we hate us and they hate them.
Right. And West Virginia, nobody cares about.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. But yeah, you've got that. And some of that stuff comes from, I remember, my grandmother telling stories about her grandmother who was actually alive during the Civil War and would talk about different, Stonewall Jackson, that bloody butcher, right, and stuff like that. And then they would hate, they were all Pennsylvania Yankees and they had no time for anything south of the Mason-Dixon line. Especially Virginia. So when we moved, down to Maryland, my grandmother lived with us. She would not live in Virginia because that was the Confederacy,
right?
She would not live there. So we ended up in Maryland. And I guess, is that a fan? But that's actually brought out through at least oral history and experience.
Right. It's as a passed down fandom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is surprising to me though that people hold on to these things. Some of these things, especially if they have no personal connection whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, obviously, the sports are a little bit different because as it's passed down, you're growing up in it. And so, of course, you're going to naturally be fans. Like with the Orioles fans around here, you've got minor league teams around the corner that put the orange and black into you from the time you're 6.
Yeah.
Right.
And none of us Orioles fans are Orioles fans because they're winning.
Right. Well, of course not. No.
We're loyal to our team, and
there is some suffering in the fanboy world, right?
Yeah.
Like if you suffered through the bad parts, then you're a true fan,
right?
Versus someone who jumps on like the bandwagon fan.
Oh, I'm a Capitals fan. Have been for since I was a little kid, and when the Capitals started getting good, when they won their Stanley Cup, I'm thinking, all these Johnny-come-latelys, like, you didn't suffer the way I did. You don't I deserve this more than you do because I was there for the awful, the years when they wore the awful, blurple uniform and, the whatever that eagle thing was. And then before that, when they were just getting bounced by Pittsburgh in the first round year after year after year, I earned this cup more than you did. But the other thing I don't get about fans is you'll have people that are diehard Michigan fans. Never been to Michigan.
Right.
Didn't go to school there. Didn't go. If I had to pick a college football team, it would be Penn State because I went to college in Pennsylvania. But I didn't go to Penn State. But it's just, they're just enamored with, and I get the Notre Dame thing. You know, people who are Catholic, they're
Right.
Notre Dame fans. But to be a Michigan fan and you've never been to Michigan, you don't have family there. Alabama's the same way. All these teams that, I'm a diehard, Roll Tide.
Right.
What part of Alabama are you from? I've never been there. Did you go to school there? Nope. Like,
Well, and someone, I can't remember who was talking about this, but someone had mentioned Rutgers. And it was a conversation we were having. I don't know if it was you or I or someone else. But someone was like, why are you a fan of Rutgers? When you, like, they're from Jersey, but they never went to Rutgers.
right.
And college sports in the Northeast were never really a big thing.
No.
In fact, for the most part, you can't name a big-time college sports school in the Northeast. The only two you really have was Syracuse for basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Rutgers had that 3 to 4 year run with Schiano.
Mm-hmm.
But is there another school in the Northeast that ever did anything sports-wise? And I think what happens is, in the South, you don't have people that really identify with pro sports.
Right.
Like people in Alabama or Auburn or Alabama fans. Georgia, I mean, you got some Atlanta Braves fans,
Mm-hmm.
but no one's an Atlanta Thrashers fan.
No. Well, and there were so few Atlanta Thrashers fans. They're now the Winnipeg Jets.
Right.
But
Even like the Hawks, right?
Yeah.
In the NBA, there's some fans, but they're not diehard fan. Like, so they were making the equivocation of like people in the South and the Midwest treat the college sports as their pro sports, basically. So even if you didn't go, that's who you latched onto because you were raised in that. So maybe that's why you're a fan. And in the Northeast, it's all pro sport. It's Boston. It's the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Patriots, the Giants, the Jets. It's like,
and that makes a lot of sense. So you look at the NFL. Through the early stage of the NFL, the team that was the furthest south was the Washington Redskins. They were the team of the South until the Dallas Cowboys moved in. Right. And that was part of what fueled the rivalry between the two was the Cowboys were eating. I mean, you go down to North Carolina and you'll still see an equal amounts of Redskin fans as opposed to Carolina Panther fans because they latched onto that team from the beginning. But,
and like in Maryland, Colts, you still got Colts fans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Versus the Ravens.
Yeah. And then you have people that hate the Colts because they moved.
Oh, yeah.
The Colts moved in, 81, 82, something like
that.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little tiny kid. And I don't hate the Colts, but I have people here who absolutely hate the Indianapolis Colts because of how they moved in the middle of the night. And
I can never be a Colts fan. As much as I can be a Peyton Manning fan, Pat McAfee fan, I can't be a Colts fan because living in this state, it is hammered into you every chance that they can get that the Colts moved in the middle of the night, and Robert Irsay was the worst human on earth. Just like I'm sure in Cleveland, Art Modell was the worst human on earth.
Oh yeah, so
but they at least kept their name and the team colors.
Yeah.
When they came to Baltimore, Cleveland kept all of that.
Yeah.
When the Colts left, they took all of it.
Oh yeah.
They took all of it.
Yeah, they moved moving vans literally in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And moved out.
But what I'm saying, they took the Colts name, the colors.
Yeah.
They took all of that. They took the identity of Baltimore at the time.
Yep.
And so people in Baltimore to this day, if you're talking to anyone over 40, 45 years old, they remember and they I'm going to say that it's like the anti-fanboy. Like they vehemently do not like the Colts and they never will.
Yeah.
Even Peyton Manning, one of the most likable sports athletes ever, didn't turn these people.
No, they couldn't. And I do have a buddy who he's a diehard Colts fan and grew up here and just stuck with him for whatever reason. And he must be one of those outliers. But the fanboy stuff, even it gets into stuff like airlines.
Yeah,
people
Southwest.
will be and Southwest, if you're a diehard Southwest fan, you're a diehard Boeing fan because all they fly are Boeings. But
in this area though, because BWI is so big with Southwest, people will only fly Southwest.
And I'll fly Southwest even if there are cheaper options.
Right. Because you know what you're getting.
Yeah. My dad always flew United, and he was a huge United fan. But there are some perks and stuff that go into that when you build your miles with one airline. And where he was flying when he was working was United flew direct from Dulles to where he was going in Europe or Asia. So he flew them. But he became a diehard United fan, even though the Asian carriers had nicer first class or nicer business class economy, all this other stuff. But nope, he stuck with United. Right. And it could be regional things that going to United. If you're from Chicago, you might be because that's where their headquarters are and things like that. But really, the airline doesn't care about you.
No, not at all. They don't.
They care about your money.
I would say airlines probably care about 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably 100 business travelers that fly every week, round trip.
Yeah.
And that's their bread and butter of the business.
Yeah.
Because they're flying first class or business class, so they're paying more for a ticket than you are in coach. You're just filling the plane.
Yeah.
That's all you are to them.
And my father was one of those guys because he flew so much that he was, in the whatever 100,000 K premier status. It was cool to fly with him because they kiss his butt when we showed up, and he was always upgraded. That was cool, but it was all work stuff. It had nothing to do with with him.
Right.
They cared about the fact that every time they were making thousands of dollars off of him for putting his butt in their seat. So
I feel like it's something that, I guess the term fanboy, it's kind of like it's a negative term, right? Because no one wants to be called a fanboy of anything. But
I think that
brand loyalty, cult following, it's all the same type.
Well, I think the term fanboy comes from, it's someone that's just a fanboy. Like, they don't know anything about it. They have really no skin in the game. I've always thought of it as a negative connotation. Where, you're dealing with somebody like when, if you have to run across someone who's the opposite of whatever you're trying to get, and they are, you should do this, you should do that, this is the best. And, dude, shut up.
Right.
No one, I don't care. You're a fanboy. It's not like you're a pilot. If you were a pilot and was telling me about how Airbus is superior to Boeing, okay, I'll listen to you. If you're an engineer, motorcycles, people talk like the Harley guys and the Kawasaki guys, and I'm not talking about the sport bike versus cruiser, but Kawasaki, and they make some nice cruiser bikes, but the Harley guys, they're not real bikes. But the Kawasaki guys go say, yeah, but mine starts when I want it to.
But I guess I feel like if you give someone, like in our case when we're talking about the guns, if I said, okay, these are my criteria, I want a 9mm, inexpensive, and fairly easy to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably only two choices that probably would fit that. So for the fanboy to then give me two other options of one brand that don't fit my criteria, that's fanboying in my opinion.
Yeah,
like you need this and nothing else.
Right, you need a 45. I didn't want a 40. It's almost like if you went to the car dealership and said, I'm looking for a Ford Focus, and they said, nope, you need an F-150.
Right.
No. You misunderstood what I said. I said I want a Ford Focus because I'm looking for a commuter car, and you're trying to sell me an F3. Oh, now it's a 350.
Right.
You need a diesel.
Right.
No, I don't. But again, you said you wanted an inexpensive 9mm handgun.
Yeah.
There are decent weapons that you can get and not break the bank on it for what you need it.
Right.
You're not on SEAL Team 6.
Right.
You don't need what they do. Right. And then you get the whole, well, would you trust your life to it? Chances are that guy hasn't trusted his life to anything either.
Right. In general, I mean, the chance of a home invasion where I actually have to do this thing to protect myself, well, the caliber of bullet will probably figure that out.
Yeah.
And the gun will probably work.
Yeah.
I mean, am I, like you said, though, am I going to go hunt terrorists with it? No, I'm not.
Right.
It's going to suit the home protection that I need it for. And, oh, by the way, it's also going to suit my needs when I want to go to the range and shoot some bullets.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't need the best of the best when I'm going, but it's like you could apply this whole type of conversation to almost anything.
Yeah.
Refrigerator? Oh, you need a Samsung.
Yeah.
Samsung's the best. Samsung's the only computer.
Yeah.
You got to get a Mac.
Yeah.
Oh, then you get the Apple people back again.
Yeah, here they are.
Oh, I need a Mac. Okay. Like, I can buy a refurbished PC laptop that'll do everything I need it to do.
Right.
For maybe $300.
Mm-hmm.
A Mac laptop, an iMac, or whatever they call it nowadays, is about the same spec thing, and we're talking about a computer, $1,200 to $1,300, if not more. I can buy 5 of these. I can buy. I'll say conservatively, I can buy 4 of these refurb laptops that will do everything I need it to do for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can trash it, get another one, and I'll still be at half the price of your Mac.
Yeah.
And I won't have any loss of function.
And
so that, to me, that's a real answer for someone. Like my brother-in-law asked. He's like, "Oh, I really want to get that new Mac laptop." I was like, "Dude, you don't need to be spending $1,500 on this thing."
Yeah.
"Oh, well, it's really good for editing and photos." I was like, "You can do the same thing on a PC laptop. Save yourself $1,200. I mean, you might have to buy 2. I mean, the Mac may last 6 years before it's outdated. So let's say you buy 2, and you're into the 2 laptops. You buy them back to back. You're into them for $600. Okay, you still saved $900.
Yeah,
that's a vacation. You know, it's like sometimes you got to get out of your own way to make the right purchase for you.
Yeah,
because Tim Cook does not care who you are.
No,
but he loves your cash.
Right, and what it does, and that brand that that they've built definitely, gets more of your cash.
Of course.
And there are certain people doing certain things that, I think I remember back, if you're doing music editing or music production, the Macs were the best, the better way to go. Like
GarageBand was a software. Great.
Yeah, people were using that, and certain other applications that people would use, the Macs were just superior in how they did it, and that's awesome. If you need that. But if you're like the average schlub who is just going to be checking their email and watching some YouTube videos and maybe sending, looking at some pictures of the kids or, doing some homework on it, right, you don't need it.
Well, and even if it's better, is it 5 times better?
Right.
5 times.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what you could do with $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and let's say you had $1,200 of that back in your pocket.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So
is that Mac $1,200 better to you?
Yeah, you buy what is that, the new Shiba Inu coin?
There you go. Right. Yeah.
But,
but I mean, the answer is no. But,
yeah.
But you could say the same thing with a luxury car versus a mainstream brand, right?
Yeah.
Is it better? No. But you want to know what? I get it. I get the other side of it. The other side is no. But this is what I want, and I'm willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
All right then. Yeah. But be honest with yourself.
Right.
Are you getting, like, if you pay $25,000 for the Toyota Camry versus $40,000 for the Lexus ES, which is essentially the same car,
mm-hmm,
just it's basically a Camry in a tuxedo.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to say, this extra $15,000 is worth it to me to have this Camry in a tuxedo, I got no problems with that.
So people show up, hey, I want to buy the Lexus because I want people to see me pull up in the Lexus.
Or let's say I like a little bit of quieter ride.
Yeah.
Like the little bit of improvements over the Camry that it has, I'm willing to pay this dollar amount over and above.
Yeah.
I got no problems with that.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is kind of like when you're asking for, like, if someone's asking for advice on a purchase and all they're getting is, well, you need the Lexus now. You need the ES.
You need the Escalade. No, I think the Suburban will do just fine. Right. No, you need the Escalade.
Right.
Which
this Tahoe is just fine.
Yeah.
I don't need the Escalade at $40,000 more.
Right. And they're identical.
Mechanically, yes.
Yeah.
The interior is different.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more sound deadening, a little bit more insulation.
And the newer ones, yeah, there's a lot more differences. But when if you're talking, early 2000s vintage, they're identical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more badge engineering. And at that point, now to me, you're being foolish. You want all you're going is for that name,
yeah.
for the Cadillac name. And when all they were doing was slapping badges and bigger price tags on them. So,
yeah,
So
I guess what we're both trying to say is that, if you're looking for advice on what to purchase, you kind of dig through some weeds, especially if you're looking online for the advice and the forums, and you gotta dig through the fanboy stuff to get the real information, so you can be an informed consumer, or pretty much in anything in life at this point. But at this point, we want to say thank you. We're gonna please like, share, subscribe this video if you're on YouTube, or podcast if you're on any of the platforms like Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Deezer, or Spotify, any of them, Pandora. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.